Hi everyone, welcome to Clearing for Takeoff, and we're the Aerospace Engineering Club at Walter Payton College Prep. And in this series, we're talking with aerospace students and professionals to help high schoolers better understand what this field actually looks like. From college pathways to research and career advice, our goal is to give you real insight from people who are living it. Today, we're excited to be joined by Marty, a master's student in aerospace engineering at UIUC. For our first question, we were kind of wondering what ignited your interest first in the field of aerospace engineering, and what was the moment when that's what you knew what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so like I met you guys at a summer camp last summer. I also attended one of the camps that the university does. And when I did it, I originally thought I wanted to do mechanical engineering. And that was just from I took a CAD class in high school and I thought that was a really fun thing. And I tried to get into the mechanical engineering camp here, and it was all full. And so they put me in the aerospace one instead. And then throughout that week, I was like, wow, this is so cool. I would love to do something like this. And so it was sort of by chance that I ended up in aerospace.
Oh, okay. How like similar would you say the fields are, like the aerospace and mechanical engineering fields?
They're pretty similar. Well, most engineering is vaguely similar for the first few years. So there's your general math and like dynamics and physics classes that all engineering students have to take. And then the last 2 years is really where we separate out into our specific majors. Then you take like technical classes that are more specific to what you're doing.
Hmm.
I've heard some people say that aerospace is just more of a specification than its own major. So we're taking in different concepts from different engineering disciplines in order to apply them to either airplanes or space and rockets.
So is it more like engineering gen eds for your first 2 years, are you saying, and then last 2 years is like more specialized?
Yeah, so we have, at least for UIUC, we have requirements of gen eds that we have to take as well as like our engineering specific requirements. But they are more general classes, just like all of your math classes, your physics classes, chemistry.
Alex?
Well, I had a question about research. So obviously you're doing your master's. So how is like how is research in college, and how do you like go about choosing a topic on what to research, and how does like the college play a role in the research? How long does research take?
Yeah, I've done both undergrad and now I'm doing my own grad research. So I'll talk a little bit first about undergrad research. And for that, really, as an undergrad, when you're doing research, you're not running your own project. You're mostly just helping out grad students, helping out professors, doing these smaller tasks that they need you to help with. So in my undergrad, I helped out with two different projects, and that was just like helping me realize that maybe I do want to go to grad school and get a master's and continue on doing research. And once I kind of realized that, I kept talking to professors that I'd worked with. And for doing grad school research, a lot of it really depends on where there's money to fund the research. So it wasn't so much that I came up to my professor and I was like, I have this great idea. This is what we should do. It was, hey, I've got this topic I need somebody to work on because we have funding for this project. And so that's how I ended up on the project that I'm on, which I can talk a little bit about. You can see behind me is this wind tunnel. So
Mhm.
I'm doing uh, the long fancy name for it is I do passive airfoil decambering using bistable metamaterials. So really what that means is we're trying to get the flap of a wing, or this airfoil, to deflect on its own. So if you think of like a poppet that you push in and it pops, like one of those, or a slap bracelet, that's a bistable material. So it's stable in one state, then you apply enough force and it snaps to another stable state. So we're using those types of materials in order to tune what moment and force applied that this flap deflects at, which actually I've got an example here. So it looks like this is the actual material. And then once enough torque is applied, it's going to snap to a second state. And so we can tune. what the snapping characteristics of this hinge are in order to say, oh, at this amount of lift in this applied moment, it's going to deflect the flap this much. So that's what I've
Thank
been
you.
working on. Yeah, we're also looking at doing multiple of them connected in series to try to get it to deflect 2 times in a row. But it's starting to wrap up now. We're about at the end of it. I should graduate in May. Hopefully, these are the last runs that I do this week.
So for our next question, we know that aerospace is a really vast field and a complex field that ranges from planes to rockets. So how difficult is college and the path to a master's for aerospace engineering students? Is there a lot of homework, not much sleep, and how much of a role does passion play?
Yeah, it is difficult. There's not much sleep. There's a lot of homework, a lot of exams, but I found that there's like a sense of camaraderie. You're doing it with all the same people in your classes. We're not a huge department. There's only like, well, actually, we're growing quite a bit. So there's 250 incoming freshmen this year. And so you get to know the people who are in your classes, you find your group, and you work through all of your coursework together. And so it's not like you're just there in the library alone, working away all night long. You're with a group of people all trying to solve the problems together. But yeah, you're not going to sleep that much when you're busy. Um, Sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Yeah, the second part was, is there a lot of homework and uh, how is the journey to getting a master's for aerospace students?
Oh, for getting a master's, I think I talked a little bit about how I decided to stay on and do a master's. Not many of my friends decided to stay. I feel like most people in aerospace go straight into industry. And the other part was talking about passion. So I know a lot of people are very passionate about aerospace. I teach one of our incoming freshman classes, and so often there's people in these freshman classes that know more than me about certain topics just because that's what they find most fascinating in the world. But there's also people where they start aerospace and they're like, oh, I picked it because it was first alphabetically. I don't really know that much about anything. So it, there are a lot of very passionate students in aerospace, but I wouldn't say that passion is necessarily a requirement to do well.
For our next question, so we saw that you were also a pilot, which is we found that really cool, and we were wondering what that experience is like, what got you interested in it, and it also is it just purely a hobby or is it also like a potential like career path or something you would do on the side?
Yeah, for me, this is mostly a hobby. I honestly, I don't really have much time to fly anymore, and it's pretty expensive, so I don't do it very often. Um, it's common, fairly common, at least for there to be some pilots in my classes, like other people I know that are pilots here at the university. Um, I got into it because in the summer camp the year I went, they took us up in the planes at the airport. And so getting to sit there and fly the plane for a little bit was just awesome. And I decided I want to do this. So I went home and I researched what scholarships there were. And there's quite a few for people under the age of 18. If you're interested, I can talk a little bit more about that. But I got my pilot training completely funded and I worked at the airport that I was renting planes from. So throughout high school, I did my training and continued to work at the airport. And yeah,
And if you don't mind me asking, did you go to like high school around U of I or like Illinois?
I'm from Illinois. I'm 3 hours south of Illinois, so Carbondale area.
Okay, thank you. For our next question, if you were back in high school today, what would you focus on to build a strong foundation for aerospace engineering, and kind of what activities and what would you pursue to build a foundation? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the obvious answers that probably everybody's going to say is math and science in your physics classes to really take those to heart. You'll continue to build off of those skills throughout college, but I'd also say that English classes are especially important. especially if you're doing research, because we're not just trying to learn something new, we also want to communicate whatever it is we learn. So having the skills to communicate, sorry, as I stumble, to communicate clearly and be able to write what you've learned in a clear way for other people to understand is especially important. There's also like clubs. I know a lot of people do like robotics clubs, and I'm sure that helps with some hands-on experience. I personally wasn't super involved in clubs. I worked at the airport, as I mentioned, and mostly spent my time flying when I was there.
Thank you. Yash.
Yeah, so for our next question, we know that AI is becoming an even bigger field today. So would you recommend a major in aerospace engineering and a minor in CS or something else, given the importance of AI and computers in today's world and society?
So I know AI is being used for some specific research. I personally, it's not too relevant for me. I know a lot of people do decide to do a minor in CS, uh, mostly because, well, I do like aerodynamics research, but another large topic is controls research. So that's thinking about how do we control a system when it's flying, whether that's like an airplane, a drone, or a satellite. So a lot of those people do take CS for a minor. I don't personally know anybody who did though.
So obviously being exposed to like a great aerospace program, how much would you say the school you go to matters for either like research opportunities or the job market later on? And what things do you feel are gained or lost in, like a certain like level of program?
I think education wise, probably all top 10 schools are pretty similar. You're not in your classes, you're not learning different material from other students. One of the good things about going to U of I is we do have like a division one research where we've got a lot of projects that are always going on. Professors are bringing in a lot of different programs. Um, we also have a large alumni network, so whenever honestly, I haven't applied to jobs because I've done grad school, but all of my friends, when they were telling me about their application process, they're like, oh, yeah, this person who works there also went here. And so we bonded over the fact that we both went to the same school. So I think that definitely doesn't hurt. Um, it's probably similar at all of the top 10 schools, though.
Build
Yeah,
like building off your response. I know that like obviously alumni networks they matter a lot if you're in like the financial world or like the economics or banking or something. But does it hold like the same weightage if you're in the aerospace engineering field or some other engineering field?
Think it doesn't hurt. It might not be like, oh, so and so has a job offering for you. You can apply to it. But it's more like, oh, this is available. Maybe you should apply. It's not guaranteed you'll get it, but you're at least made aware of an opportunity that you might not have otherwise been aware of.
Okay.
my next question was about like clubs in college, so like engineering clubs specifically. I remember one of the camp counselors, Ben, he said one of his friends did, I think, the Formula Car team at U of I. So, like, to what extent do you think it's beneficial, and like, to what extent do you think it should negatively like affect your grades or your coursework? Because I remember he was talking about how that person went really, really deep into the club, and they ended up getting like, I think, a Formula One job offer. Also, that's obviously probably not like a very common thing.
Yeah, I think being involved in things outside of classes is something that most employers are looking for. If you have just like a perfect 4.0 but nothing else, that's not really bringing too much to the table for them. Um, I know a lot of my friends were involved in Design Build Fly. So that's a club where every year they build a different remote controlled aircraft. And so the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics puts out a request every year with a different design criteria and like a mission that they're trying to meet. And so they design a new plane each year to meet that mission. and then they go and compete with that plane. Um, there's also Illinois Space Society is another big club here. So that's ISS. They do quite a few different building projects. Honestly, I was never involved in the club, so I'm not too sure. But I know they have one where each year NASA has a request for like a certain tool, and if you make it to like the final round, you can go out and they'll test it in their big pool that they use to simulate space conditions. I think the club's gone to that a few times, but I'm not too sure. Personally, I didn't really do too much at the clubs. I spent my time doing undergrad research, or you have sometimes you can have the opportunity to be a course assistant for a class. So that's sort of like being a TA, but as an undergrad. So you're usually doing a lot more grading and helping run things in like lab sections.
For our next question, we were wondering about the process of getting an internship or co-op. Like, how competitive is this process, and how is this process, and how much does it matter?
So it is pretty competitive. As I've said, I haven't really done too much for that. Over the summers, I've spent doing undergrad research or continuing my grad research. But I know a lot of my friends when they were applying, it's like you send out 100 applications, you hear back from like you get interviews with maybe 5 or 10, and maybe you get an offer. So it's a very competitive thing. You're sending out a lot of applications trying to get something, but I do know most of my friends found internships. All of them have jobs now within the year that we graduated. So there are still things available, even with the economy as it is, they are still finding jobs.
Thank you.
I wanted to add on to Sid's question. So, in finding an internship, does the school play a big role? The name of the school?
I'm not too sure. It might. There are certain things where it's like, oh, Boeing is on campus for 50 Illinois students for internships. And so it's certainly going to help there where they are only looking to hire from our school. Um, there are other times, I'm not sure if you're applying to just like a very general thing, if they're going to say, oh, this person's from Illinois, that's better than somewhere else. But there are specific instances where companies come to the school specifically to hire our students. So it definitely helps in that case.
Yeah, I had a bit more of a personal question because I'm kind of deciding between mechanical and aerospace engineering. And from what I've heard, to be successful in the aerospace field, you have to be like highly specialized at. I think you kind of talked about this as well. Like, what kind of like courses do mechanical engineering majors like take in undergrad, and how like, specialized are they in comparison to like aerospace engineering majors?
So like our first 2 years, we're literally in the same classes. It's funny, sometimes it'll be the same class that's cross-listed. So it's like AE certain number is the same class as ME certain number, and it's taught by the same professor, but it's just listed as aerospace or mechanical. We're just in the same class. But really, it's junior and senior year where you're actually specializing and taking different classes. We're taking similar coursework. Like one example is both of us are taking fluids classes. It's just as an aerospace engineer, all of your examples and like the problems that you're working are going to be like how's the plane moving through the air, where maybe for a mechanical engineer, they're looking a lot more about pipe flow and how water and fluids run through a pipe specifically, not so much as airflow around a plane. Um, I think the main difference, well, I think that that class example is pretty indicative of the actual difference. There's not too much, it's just more applied to aerospace space applications. Um, for our senior design, those are pretty different as well. I'm not too sure what mechanical does, but for ours, we have the option to either do like a space side senior design, where you design a rocket launch system, or you can do the air side, which is what I took, where we design a complete plane, a different plane each year, and you work in teams. You do complete initial design process. You have a not built, but fully catted out model of a plane with all of the performance data at the end of it, which honestly was very cool. Nice capstone project to do.
I know you just mentioned CAD. As like somebody who's applying for aerospace engineering, like, would you recommend like learning that in high school, or are there courses in college that kind of get you like situated to that kind of thing?
Yeah, learning it in high school is, well, I like CAD. I thought that CAD was fun whenever I learned it in all of the classes that I took. So it it's a fun thing to do. It's not necessary to apply.
Mhm.
You're definitely gonna have a required CAD class at any school that you go to.
Yeah.
And so we have one that's aerospace specific where we use Siemens NX. So that's just one of the like professional level CAD software packages. And I know I've said that it's not really your junior, senior year where you split into all of your aerospace classes, but it's not like you're just taking these boring general classes the whole time waiting to get to these exciting classes. There are some other introductory level classes, so you'll take probably one or two aerospace classes each semester leading up to that.
And I had a question about the research itself that you do, because I know you mentioned that you do a lot of research. So, how does like the process of undergraduate research like work? Do you do it like for a class through a class, or is it something you do on your own time with like a separate group or professor?
So there are some opportunities that recently that they've made a new class specifically for undergrad research where grad students can apply with different project ideas and then they can recruit different students and they get class credit out of helping these grad students. However, when I did it, it wasn't through the class. So there's like undergraduate research opportunity. Europe was the program that I did it through. And so I worked directly with the professor and then I was just like paid hourly for whatever work I did. So I logged the hours that I did, um, mostly at night when I was done with other things, done with all of my classes.
And can you like talk about maybe one of your like research like topics, or like overall like just something?
Yeah. In undergrad, I worked on the swept wing icing program. So for this, it's looking at swept wings. So that's like your commercial airliner wings. This was like a 737 equivalent type of plane. It's the NASA Common Research Model. And so the whole project was seeing what ice structures form on these wings and then how do those affect the performance of the plane. So they took the wing to the icing research tunnel, which is a really big wind tunnel that NASA has out in Ohio at NASA Glenn. And it's refrigerated. They can spray water molecules, and because it's a refrigerated room, they can see what ice shapes actually form on whatever models in the wind tunnel. Then we like take a laser scan of it and can 3D print those shapes. And then we test them in a smaller wind tunnel like this that's cheaper to operate. The other program that I worked on in undergrad was it was funded by the Navy, so they were interested at seeing how propulsors on like a ship would create the different wakes that formed. So we looked at if we had a ground plane and we had it at different angles and we had a propulsor, like an engine, a propeller pushing downward on it, what types of wake structures did we see forming?
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
So, for our last question, to wrap it all up, if we were all to die tomorrow, what's the best piece of advice you would give to the younger generation trying to figure out what their passions and goals are in their life?
Ooh, best piece of advice. If we're all gonna die tomorrow, I'd say just don't worry too much about it. Like you can you might not know what you want to do when you go into college, and that's okay. You can still figure it out. There's still time to change majors or do whatever you need to do. It's not the end of the world. You don't need to have your life figured out in high school when you're applying. Even applying, if you don't get into your top college, that's also not the end of the world. You're going to get a similar education no matter where you go. Yeah, I feel like when I was applying, I was just super stressed about everything all the time. And looking back, I didn't need to be that stressed. It all worked out. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.